veterans are dying in Georgia each month. But we have our field officers staffed, and you helped us with that, and we appreciate that, and we're doing a good job in that, but thanks to you and your help. And Lynn, if you would cover the part that I was talking about the nursing home care, I'd appreciate it. Lynn,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, referring to the tracking document, line 1 of the tracking document simply reflects that across-the-board adjustment to the workers' compensation premiums. Lines 2 through 4 reflect redirections from administration, the Georgia Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Milledgeville, and the Veterans Benefits programs to partially cover a larger identified $287,000 shortfall in the State Veterans Nursing Home in Augusta that Mr. Wheeler just referred to. That $287,000 was actually requested in our amended request initially this year. We had to ask for it offline, if you will, as the instructions that we received earlier this year clearly stated that only redirections would be considered during the supplemental process this year. However, because of the size of the need, the $287,000, we simply did not have that much money in any other object class within any other program that we could have redirected to take care of the nursing home requirement, to the Augusta nursing home requirement. So we did ask for the entire $287,000 offline. As you can see, $96,000 was redirected from the other 3 programs to at least partially take care of the need. The shortfall there is a combination of things. It's a combination of directed reductions that we have had to take over the past 3 years, which has now resulted in the Augusta nursing home today operating with $600,000 less this year than it had 3 years ago. That is in the face of rising cost of health care services, as you may well imagine, that have increased nearly 13% over that same period of time. Pharmaceuticals alone for the nursing home in Augusta is projected to be $715,000 this year, which is more than double than what it was 5 years ago. All of this at the end of the last fiscal year 05, required the nursing home to have to defer open invoices that they had to be paid at the end of 05 that could not be paid because of the shortfall, had to be referred or deferred over to the current fiscal year 06. This is not a good business practice, I think we'll all agree, and as long as that has to keep happening every year, the shortfall is just going to continue to compound. So in short, I would say that in addition to the $96,257 redirection that the governor's recommended, we're still going to need an additional $190,743 to make up the shortfall that exists today in Augusta. And in all likelihood, will remain or still exist once we begin to address the big budget, the fiscal 07 budget later on this year. That's all I know, Mr. Chairman, and I'll stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the subcommittee? Representative Smith.
My husband is a Vietnam War vet, and so I'm certainly aware and appreciative of everything that y'all do. I always wish it could be a whole lot more. I respect all the soldiers who have fought for us, and I know our committee shares that sentiment. I hope our Vietnam vets will take better use of this program. It's just an overall observation I have that they're the group that is not seeking what we have to offer. I'll make that comment. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Any other questions?
The question I have is can you just tell me how many people are in the nursing home? That's the numbers there. And I have one other question.
Yes, sir. We have 183 beds filled in Augusta today.
And the one more question is the $6 million under the veterans benefits. What kind of that's for all your services you give in the locations. I think they'll have local offices in like Barclay County and
We have a number of offices. We have 47 offices that are scattered throughout the state of Georgia and in the towns and cities in Georgia.
Come into those offices to receive questions answered and whatever if they needed, filing forms or getting things done.
That's absolutely correct. That all of those efforts collectively have generated a great deal of federal revenue through the payment of benefits into the state of Georgia, being paid directly to the veterans. I think it's over $1 billion annually. That
And I believe we've got, what, the third highest number of veterans in the country, the third or fourth highest in the state and the nation.
We're number 9 in the nation right at the present time. But we're bringing in more money than the others that have more veterans than we have.
That's what I read in one of your letters, Mr.
We're bringing in more money than Georgia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe that's all the questions. I did want to ask you, I've got a letter, I was hoping to get with you earlier today, it's just we haven't had an opportunity to. I have a letter, a copy of a letter that, I think Mr. Esposito had written to the delegation down in Augusta. I think in relation to this request, I wanted to ask, is this the same amount of money, $190,000? Is that the amount of money that you were identifying in that letter?
In the first paragraph, it's the, I can say, in the first paragraph, it is, it's talking about supplemental, I think that's the letter, I think we're on the same page. It's the 96,000 plus the 100, and what's the number you just gave, 190? Which equals 287 total.
Yeah, the 190,743.
Yeah, yes, sir.
In that letter, if I'm not mistaken, in that letter you identified that part of the reason for the need was the pay increase. I'm confused about that.
Yes, and that was talking about if the proposed 4% salary increase that goes into effect, would go into effect in part of that letter was 07. And I think that was may have been in the 07 portion. Okay. And of course, if that goes through, you know, we're getting into 07, but I think we were only allocated like $96,000 increase for 07, or for our entire budget. And a 4% increase alone is annually is a $200,000 with benefits, $200,000 increase to our budget.
The reason I'm confused about that is that in the 06 or in the 07 governor's recommendations, I believe that was supposed to reflect the whatever paid, 4%, 2%, whatever for state employees.
It would reflect 6 months, and no other monies for any other operating increases that go along with health care, but it would reflect 6 months.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you all coming. I don't think there are any questions about it. We will certainly look at this request, and I just need to reiterate that we in this subcommittee and the full committee can only report to the General Assembly, to the House of Representatives. We can only report our recommendations, or our version of the budget, at the amount that the governor has set the revenue estimate. We can't set it we can't make it any higher and add things. We can't add things. So anything that we add, we have to find some place to cut. And so it's not. I mean, I wish and we would do anything. Every member of this subcommittee will do everything. We will do everything that we can to help y'all, because the mission is so important and so close to our hearts and everything. I just want you to know that we can't just add it, but we will review it and in any way that we can to help.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. And Jim, if you could do that, if I take the liberty of preparing a handout with salient points of what I've just presented to take with you, which I hope will be helpful to you as you continue deliberations later on. Representative Smith, I appreciate your comments. It's rather alarming and discouraging to visit the nursing home sometime and see the increasing number of Vietnam veterans now that are entering the nursing homes today and that are populating our 2 state veterans nursing homes. It's increasing every day. I thank my lucky stars that right now Representative Maxwell and myself are not yet among those numbers. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If you would just introduce yourself to us and tell us the mission of your.
All right. My name is Wayne St. Clair. I'm Commissioner of Georgia Merit System. With me is my colleague and partner here, Vic Keene, who is my budget expert. So, having been with the state for 4 months, I think he may be able to answer some of these questions better than I can. So, we'll proceed anyway. The core mission for our Georgia Merit System is to provide, I would say, comprehensive HR services, benefits, and products to all the state agencies and employees. And also we're the agency for collecting and storing employee data and other information for state employees and monitoring state employment and personnel practices. We have taken the liberty of handing you a couple of things, and I'm not sure what you guys want to cover, but we're prepared to cover, if you so desire, some issues around the pay raise if you're inclined to talk about that today as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Vic and let him kind of go through the budget with you real quickly, and then answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to call your attention to page 2 of the document that gives you an idea of the breakdown of our revenue sources related to the agency, principally of which is the merit system assessments that we charge $147 per position for state positions, essentially, that are in the respective agencies. That's our primary funding mechanism for which we operate our organization. The color document. Yes, sir. In terms of the budget that the governor has recommended, we're supportive of that budget. However, we did have one concern in the budget document. If you could go to page 4. If you look at the payments to the Treasury of $1.5 million, those funds were earmarked for one of the governor's initiatives, the Leadership Institute, which is one of his primary initiatives in terms of a better managed state, which he is trying to get Georgia in the forefront in terms of other states. We were concerned about this issue in that our funding is based on the assessment. However, we do have rollover funds that cover certain expenditures as we go forward. And by making this transfer, that eliminates our rollover funds for the Leadership Institute. So we wanted to point out we were concerned about that. We have made the Senate leadership aware of this issue. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have concerning the budget document.
Any questions from the subcommittee? I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next we have DOAS. Pretty sure I saw somebody here a while ago.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be back with you again. You can find the governor's recommendation for DOAS on page 16 of the tracking document. And I'll go over that fairly quickly with you and, of course, answer any questions you might have. But if I could, I'd like to skip the first item and go through the rest of those first and then come back to that first item, item number 23. Sure. Our mission is to provide cost-effective and efficient business services to other state agencies so that they can achieve their mission to citizens of the state of Georgia. That includes such things as the major programs are state purchasing, where we establish statewide supply contracts for agencies to purchase from, and those allow us to aggregate the purchasing demand for state agencies to get much more competitive pricing on behalf of all state agencies. We also work with agencies on developing and competing contracts for their individual use through the requests for proposals process. We also have the risk management division, which provides insurance coverage for the Tort Liability Claims Act, the individual liability property coverage for all the state's real property, including vehicles and facilities, the unemployment fund that pays the unemployment benefits for all state employees who have lost their jobs, the workers' compensation fund, which I'll talk about in just a minute, that funds workers' compensation indemnification or indemnity payments for state employees who have lost time from work, also the medical payments to those individuals, as well as in the risk management division, we administer the peace officers and firefighters indemnification fund, so that when a peace officer or a firefighter is injured or killed or permanently disabled in the line of duty, those individuals are eligible to receive a benefit, a one-time benefit. That program also includes supplemental pay benefits for peace officers and firefighters who are temporarily disabled. Also, another part of that program is the Teachers Indemnification Fund, which would provide benefits to any teacher who is injured through an act of violence at a school. Some of our smaller programs include fleet management support for the state's fleet of motor vehicles. We provide contract maintenance services and the state fuel card. We also, as we'll talk about at some point this session, implementing a first statewide asset management program to manage that fleet of state vehicles. We run the state motor pool over next to the Trinity Washington building, renting vehicles to state agencies as they're needed. We run the mail and postal services on Capitol Hill. We also provide rapid copy services through Xerox Business Services, both at the Twin Towers building and I believe in this building, or yes, in this building. And there are some even more unusual things. We actually process and issue payroll checks for district attorneys and superior court judges. We have attached agencies that are attached to us for administrative purposes, whom we provide services such as personnel support, HR support, accounting, purchasing support, and so forth. It's a bunch of stuff. Right.
In the light that you'd be doing purchasing for some of the other agencies and departments, when we were talking to the Secretary of State's office, they were saying that with the new election, voter ID, should it go through as stated, they'd be having to purchase all of these cameras and equipment to do that. Would that be something you'd be?
Yes.
Yes. Would you be doing the bidding process for the Elections Commission, or would you actually be purchasing it through your?
We would be involved. We recognize that in a case like this, the agency is the expert in what they need to get the job done. So we are involved from not really an oversight perspective, but an assistance perspective in terms of helping them to understand the market and the trends in the marketplace, understand the potential supplier pool, perhaps even set up some target pricing levels that we might shoot for, and to really do the administrative work surrounding issuing the proposal, helping to evaluate issue the solicitation, evaluate the proposals that come in response to that, and then actually making the notice of award. So we support them in getting that done, but they're really driving, designing, or developing the scope of the equipment or the requirements of the equipment that they'll be purchasing.
We are looking for appropriations probably this year because we do have elections coming up in the fall. Would your department perhaps be able to do a thumbnail quotation? We've had two different numbers, seems to be about a little over $1,000 per county, and Secretary of State's office has come up with $6,000 per county, and it seems that we're going to have to come up with the money from somewhere. would that be something that perhaps we could come to you and say, somebody who's kind of check this out and give us a rough estimate of what you believe it would cost?
We'd be glad to take a look at that. If there's a standard list of equipment that each county will need, we can do that.
Representative Hill.
I did, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just, when you went over the list of the risk management areas,
Yes.
you said that you, employment insurance, unemployment
Unemployment.
payments,
Mhm.
the DOAS makes those payments?
Yes.
For the Department of Labor?
No, we reimburse the Department of Labor for the costs for state agencies' benefits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we serve as the insurance company for the state, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if you would go ahead and proceed then.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to actually begin with item number 24 under bulk paper sales. Since you all last met, we conducted a fairly thorough analysis of our competitive position for our bulk paper sales. If you recall, we used to sell bulk paper to state agencies 20 cases at a time out of our warehouse facility down on Murphy Avenue. The paper industry, or the paper supply industry, is very volatile, and the prices are changing on a day-to-day basis. When we took a look at our ability to provide competitive pricing to state agencies, we determined that we really couldn't make the pricing changes quickly enough to stay on top of that and provide a value-added service to state agencies. It would be much more efficient and cheaper for state agencies to actually go to the marketplace through our office supply contract or through contracts or relationships that they had already developed. Educational organizations have their own buying consortiums and so forth. So we felt like it was not really providing the kind of value that we wanted to provide, and decided really to get out of the business. So you'll see a reduction of $2.2 million, almost $2.3 million, which represents the cost of goods sold actually when we would purchase the paper and resell it to agencies. We have also eliminated the service contract management program, which was essentially two positions that managed that bulk paper contract and also managed some of our fleet contracts, and transferred those positions, requesting to transfer those positions to fleet management through item number 29, I believe. So essentially, these are all agency funds, which are recoveries that we receive from state agencies for the sale of goods and services. In our mail and courier area, we're actually asking to transfer in some dollars for real estate rentals, because the service contract management function was co-located with mail and courier, and so we have real estate that we really can't divide up and get rid of. So that $80,000 represents the portion that was previously occupied by service contract management. If there are no questions regarding those items, they're really all pretty simple. I would like to spend the bulk of the time on the first item, actually item number 23, which is the only recommendation for state fund changes in our budget, and you will see that line item in every agency budget if you look at the governor's budget report. I do have an analysis that I'd like to share with you that supports the figures that you see, or that you will see. I'm providing you with an analysis, multi-year analysis of the workers' compensation program, which is one of the programs I mentioned under our risk management division. What we do every year is to conduct a financial analysis and look at the beginning balance of the fund, the expenses that we're going to incur over the year, in addition to the revenues that we would be bringing in from premiums charged to state agencies, and project a fund balance, or the health of the fund at the end of the particular fiscal year. And what I've given you are actual expenditures from fiscal 2002 to 2005 that show you the health of the fund both on a cash basis and an actuarial recommendation basis. If you look at fiscal year 2003, you can see that we had an ending fund balance in terms of cash on hand of $213,608,000. The actuarial recommendations for the fund, which would provide for essentially recognizing payments that would be made for claims that had already been received and for claims that might be received through that year in order to pay the full run out of those claims however long they might take, and then that would be a number of years. So if what that number represents basically if we went out of business today, how much money would we need on hand to pay all of those expected claims? And based on that, you see that at that point the fund had a positive balance of $6.3 million. Since that time, we've moved towards a cash balance funding approach, and have, in order to accomplish that, not charged workers' comp premiums to state agencies in fiscal year 2004 or 2005. And as you can follow that analysis, if you look at fiscal year 2006, without the funding that the governor's recommended, we would end the year with approximately $61 million in cash, looking at a cash payout the next year of approximately $67 million. So if that trend continues and we don't once again begin to charge agencies premiums for the workers' comp fund, we would actually end up in a negative position by fiscal year 2008 of about $50 million. So we believe that it is essential to begin putting money back into this fund to maintain a positive cash flow, and what we'd like to shoot for is about a half a year's surplus or half a year's reserve, because as you can see, the actual expenses to the fund fluctuate fairly significantly every year, and we don't want to run into a situation or end up not being able to pay the claim. So we do believe that there is a small reserve requirement there, even on the cash funding basis, of about 50% of the prior year's payouts. So you can see that the governor has recommended $6.5 million in state funds, which when combined with, when we develop a premium for that, we would actually draw in another $1.3 million in agency funds and federal funds, other funds, for a total premiums of $6.6 million to the fund. That plus what the governor's recommended in fiscal year 2007 will keep us in a positive position through fiscal year 2007.
I think Representative Smith has a question.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Thank you for your presentation. As we've listened to other state agencies present their budgets to us today, it begs the question to me, when you cut your line item cost of your bulk paper purchasing and such as that, how is that reflected in all the other agency budgets?
It is not, because, well, because they will still have to make that expenditure.
Okay.
We'll just no longer be a source for that purchase.
So they budget for it anyway?
Yes.
And so it shouldn't show up in the print?
That's right.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other lights. Any other questions?
Let me ask one.
Representative Master.
Sorry. I'm sitting here looking at this. Thank you for the presentation, yes, sir. I'm looking at the funding receipts under the other recoveries interest.
Right.
And if I'm getting this right, 02 and 03, 04, 05, looks like we're getting, I don't know, is that bulk of this interest that we've drawn on the money we had on hand, or?
It is interest and recoveries from the secondary injury trust fund, subsequent injury trust fund. That's going away, and of course we'll be earning less interest because we have less cash in the fund. So, right, right. We receive typically from $4 to $7 million in recoveries from the fund every year. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Appreciate your presentation. You said everything.
Let me just say too, Mr. Chairman, that I look forward to coming back to talk to you about how we have been spending all of the money you gave us last year and the things that we've been accomplishing with that, and how that will come to fruition this year, and I think show significant benefits for the state.
We look forward to that. In fact, I think we're about 8:30 in the morning. I'd like to hear it now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
GTA, they come. I just wanted to apologize to y'all. I had mentioned that you might want to come, and I don't know. I don't think that we really have any questions. Well, I apologize for taking your time.
No, we appreciate it, and we learn something every time we're here, so we appreciate it.
Unless you have something you want to bring to us.
Not right this moment, no, sir.
Probably not. Very wise. Thank you very much. I think we have one agency left, Department of Audit.
Yes, sir.
I know you, but if you would introduce us anyway, and
Yes.
give us a brief description of the mission of the auditing department.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to. The Department of Audits and Accounts mission statement provides that we exist to provide decision makers, such as y'all, with relevant and credible information to promote improvements in accountability and stewardship in state and local government. Now, the way we accomplish that is by performing a core group of audits. We perform the audit of the financial audit of the comprehensive annual financial report of the state. We perform the federal statewide single audit. We audit colleges and technical schools. We audit Medicaid providers, local boards of education, regional libraries. We perform a wide variety of performance audits as well as information system audits, which pervade all those areas. We also provide management and technical services to the legislature and to other areas of state government. And our program budget for the fiscal year 2006 was broken down into financial audits, performance audits, information system audits, our equalized adjusted property tax function, which we have to perform every year, legislative services, and administration. We've been very excited about our results for the past calendar year. We accomplished some goals that we'd had for quite a while. As you may remember, last year the State Accounting Office was created to prepare financial statements for the state, and thereby allowing us to become truly independent auditors of that process. We were charged by the governor, or the State Accounting Office was charged by the governor to give us the financial statements early enough that we might issue them by December the 31st, issue our opinion on their audit by then. And we're glad to say that through a close working relationship with the State Accounting Office and coordination of our audit efforts around many state agencies, we were in fact able to meet that December 31st deadline, first time we've ever done it. And so we were very excited about that. The bond rating agencies had begun to give the state some heat with regard to our AAA rating in relation to our financial reporting, and we were glad that we could bring that to fruition. We also underwent or survived our external peer review this year. Each year our office, all state auditors' offices around the country, are subjected to a peer review process with a team made up of other governmental audit shops, the federal government, and they come in and visit with us for about 2 to 3 weeks, going through our working papers, making sure that we're following the audit standards and in the performance of our work. And I'm very proud to say that we got the highest rating that they offer. In that we got an opinion that our procedures met all the appropriate standards, and they didn't have any other off the report comments for us. So we were very excited about that. We conducted some 700 field engagements, 1,700 desk reviews, and our work on federal funds through that and through billing the federal agencies for that work, we brought $4.3 million back into the state. That money goes directly into the state treasury. We don't get to keep that. We've audited Medicaid providers, resulted in about nearly $11 million in recoupment of dollars for the Medicaid program, say through nursing home recruitments and such as that. We also have generated about $9 million in restitution fines and forfeitures under our Medicaid fraud audit group. That's a three-pronged approach that we'll be asking you about for the 07 budget, where we work with the GBI, the Attorney General's office, and we have a team that work together to work on Medicaid fraud and look at nursing home issues and such as that. We were also very fortunate that some of the performance audits that you've been receiving over the year prompted some legislative action. We feel like that when that occurs, that we feel like we're doing our job to give you some areas where perhaps improvements can be made in statute or through increased scrutiny by your body, and we're very proud of that. We've also passed out the annual report of our performance audit group, and we were quite busy this year, but we felt like that we offered some good results, and that's basically where we stand and what we do. With regard to our 06 budget request, I believe our place on the tracking document is on page 7, although the information there is sort of sketchy. With regard to the fiscal year 06 budget, we have in our financial audit area, we are somewhat hamstrung, or we have to really look at timing of patterns as to when we can get accounting graduates and such as that. And if you look at the handout on page 3, with regard to our 06 budget, when we look at our staffing patterns, sometimes we're unable to match up graduation dates with when we can hire, and or is there an available pool of accountants? Believe it or not, the numbers are dropping that meet our criteria. So basically, what we've identified here in the $280,000 are dollars which we do not believe that we can obligate by the end of the fiscal year. They're generated primarily through personal services, through turnover in particular areas in our financial audit group. And so we would be offering that up for a reduction. We had a similar reduction last year, but
This is the number is
$280,000. Yes, sir. Well, would you like me to restrict my comments to the 06 year, or are y'all looking at 07?
just looking at the 06 budget.
Okay, all right. Well then,
But if you want to tell
then this will be a very pleasant presentation because the only other item that I would like to mention, and Commissioner Russell spoke of it earlier, the way our budget is set up is very much like the General Assembly. Our budget submissions occur in September prior to the governor finalizing his budget document. And because of that, there are certain expenditures which are contemplated in the governor's budget document, but which is not contemplated in our budget, or the General Assembly's budget, or the judicial budget. And with regard to fiscal year 06, one of those items would be the workers' compensation premiums which are being charged. And I'd certainly echo what Commissioner Russell said. That fund, the lack of funding going into that fund over the last couple of years has put it in a very dangerous position from both a cash flow position, but when you actually add the incurred but not reported claims, those funds are running some serious deficits. Another area of concern that Commissioner Russell did not mention is these premiums that are charged to the agencies are oftentimes paid in part by federal dollars. So if we continue to run deficits in these particular programs, the federal government may come in and look at us as though we're trying to scam them somewhat as far as billing them for a workers' compensation fund that we've not funded adequately. But anyway, the portion applicable to our budget for FY06 is approximates $16,000, but we feel like that we can fund that in 06 through existing resources, so we wouldn't be asking for money on that. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
That wasn't part of governor's recommendation.
No, sir, they didn't include that in our budget in the 06. No, sir. Just by way of explanation, the last 2 pages of the handout involve our 07 budget, but I'll be glad to go over that another day because the news on that one's not quite as good. Okay.
I just really wanted to make a comment on your performance audit.
Yes, sir.
I actually read them.
Well, thank you, sir.
And they're excellent. I really want to thank you for that. I did question if we may have mislaid some over the last year, so are those available online to us?
Yes, sir. They're available on our website. They're available through a PDF file, and you can just download it and print it right out.
That's been a wonderful and eye-opening tool.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Representative Hurd?
Mr. Denton, I just wanted to personally thank you for all the efforts that you and your department have helped my committee of information and audit over the years. You have certainly helped us see some insight into how the state can be ran better, and I think that on the city side also, there's been legislation dropped on that side also. So personally, I want to thank my constituent very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We appreciate those kind words.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you. And, well, maybe we don't look forward to seeing you. Look forward to seeing you with the secretary.
We'll put as much lipstick on the pig as we can.
Right here in the same room, and we're going to meet on Friday morning to vote out
monies have come from, that,
The new
would it be the audit
evidence
department, see if they could run that down for us, or who might be able to do that?
Margie, what do you think?
I can pull old bills and see how it was reimbursed, if you would like.
Okay. You know, I think I heard two different stories. Could be my hearing's going bad on me, but
Probably not.
I'll look it up.
I'd really like to know what happened.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question also. Where's the Attorney General's budget show up?
That would probably be in the judicial, that would be in Matt Crofton's.
Okay, Matt Crawford, okay. I was trying to figure out. Didn't see it. So you just.
I mean, frankly, I guess, Secretary of State said that the law department was never budgeted any money for those things. I mean, I guess we could look at it like, well, so what? It still should go back to them. And the Secretary of State should, we shouldn't have to deal with the Secretary of State trying to pay that, because it should go back to the law department, but I'm not sure if that's.
I think we pay our state lawyers $215 an hour. So our state attorneys make that kind of money, and we need to hire more state attorneys. We'll pay these things, but that's what they were billing us. The bill we were getting from the Attorney General's office is $215 an hour. I doubt we pay our state auditors, or state attorneys that much. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, if you will get us that information, Margie, and think about these things, I hope that you can all be here tomorrow afternoon.
Last year, I don't think it was after the budgeting process, this committee met, the subcommittee met to, have a hearing on, reimbursements to prisoners.
Right.
Ex-prisoners. And I've already heard that mentioned in the corrections that they were going to do it. Have the procedures changed from last year when this committee had to meet, and now it seems like it's already being done on another one, I'm just confused.
No, I think that what they're talking about is paying for the bill for last, that we voted out last year.
Okay, so we'll probably be having